like in a mall, and you walk in and they give you way too much service or not enough. Either one of them is bad. What you want is the right amount. So if you have the right philosophy going into a transaction, even if you're a beginner agent, and say, hey man, I'll tell you what, I'm new, but it sure doesn't seem like anybody would want to do this, but I'm open. It's a lot different than saying, well, nobody would ever want to do this. Or, hey, you don't want to dance with me, but I won't be stepping on your toes because I got really good eyesight. At least you throw a little something else in there instead of just saying, you know, don't bother with me. In real estate, you only have a few seconds of time the first time you speak. Dan referred some people, or an agent I believe, to a client of mine, and they didn't have much interaction. But that little bit of time can turn them off or turn them on. Because they got to say to themselves, is it worth my energy to continue this communication? And in this business, that little bit of them saying, man, it's worth it to follow up with this person, that's where your money's at. So when you go, and if you do download the books, what I recommend is to look at them and see what resonates with you versus what, you know, polarizes you. You don't have to agree with everything. It's like, I used to really, when I first started, follow Zig Ziglar. And then he believed in spanking his kids. I believe in a good swat, but I really don't believe in spanking your kids. So I started to think negatively towards him for that one thing. And then I thought, well, maybe he doesn't even feel that way. Maybe he's just saying that. Or maybe what he meant was different than what I mean. You see what I mean? Instead of what is different, what's the same? And if you're a buyer and somebody's a seller, what's the same is you both need to make each other happy in order to do a deal. Otherwise the deal isn't going to happen. No matter how pissed off somebody is afterwards, they said yes. So getting them to say yes is an approach. So by learning about lease purchase, I believe your approach in deals will be different. Whether you use the principle or not doesn't make any difference. You know about it. It affects the way you approach. And what do I mean by that specifically? You can't do a lease purchase unless you want to help two parties. It just doesn't happen. There's not enough money in it. The buyer and the seller, or the leaser, the lessee, you know, the person moving in, and the owner has to feel that, hey, all you want to do is get something out of it in order for them getting what they want out of it. And it worked for me. I've had to use lease purchase 3 times when I had to start over. And each time all I did is I called up all the for rent ads and simply said the same thing. Hey, have you ever considered lease purchase? And for me, what I would do is I'd say, hey, I wrote a book on lease purchase. Could I send you a free copy? So I'd send them the lease purchase book. I'd send them my autobiography. And then I'd say, hey, would you like to meet and talk? And that opened the door. And when I first did lease purchase, I called up a gentleman. I said, would you be interested in a full price lease purchase? And he said yes. And I actually didn't have any script. I didn't have any idea what to say. I assumed that they would say no. And he said, yeah. He ended up, which was my first deal, he paid cash for the house. He ended up selling the home to them and holding financing. Who would have thought? Right? It said for rent. And he's like, yeah, I'd much rather have somebody come in and buy the home. Wow. They didn't have to go to a bank. They put just a couple grand down. So again, probability-wise, you'd say that isn't going to happen. But it did happen. Now, you can say, well, how many more of those are going to happen? Ones like that will happen, but not just like that. In other words, the deals that you were talking about earlier, how they're all different, they're similar in the fact that they're all different, but they're not standard. And as an investor, if you're just starting, don't expect a standard deal. There aren't any. So again, my recommendation is to learn about lease purchase, and just the knowledge of it might open a door that you wouldn't have seen. If you're having a conversation as a beginning realtor, and you say to the prospective client, hey, maybe you'd be interested in lease purchase in this home. And they go, wow, I never would have thought of that. And now you seem like you're not so beginnerish because you're thinking of something maybe they didn't think about. And hey, I just finished reading this book and here's some ideas. They don't have to agree, but now your level of competence is raised because you're bringing up something maybe somebody else doesn't. And you go, hey, I don't make as much if you do a lease purchase, but you're happy. I mean, think about it. If you have a house for sale listing as an agent, and that house doesn't sell, typically the person can't go and buy another home, correct? So if they lease purchase it and their payment was covered, many times that opens the door to the next sale. The next sale is where you're going to really make money. And see that? That's just a philosophy right there. Okay. Any questions on that? Yes.
When I first saw your website, you had the lease purchase PDF file, and I downloaded it. And the first thing I thought was, there's a lot of information in here for free. And I'd like to have John here come in and talk about it, just because you gave so much away for free. Later on, you did some revisions on the website. I didn't see that there again for free or at all. Do you have it up there now?
Yeah, you just go under books.
Okay, so under books, it's back up there now.
Scanned them all in.
Okay, great. So they're back up there. So if you guys want to download, that's what he's saying.
The autobiography is there, the 2 personal development books are there, Change and Peak Walkers, and then Lease Purchase America is there. So there's 4.
Okay.
They're all good. Instead of me paying for them and printing them and giving them to you.
And if you're wondering how to get back to his site, if you haven't gotten a card from John, on our blog site, I've got a link back to his website to go right to where you can download those books. So that's another way of getting back to John's website.
And again, the name of my company is Joey Grace, which is my dad's first name and my mother's first name. When they both died, I like the names, and I like the name Joey Grace, so that's the name. Okay.
Tell me, what are you going to do for somebody?
Well, right now what we're looking for is investors. And basically what I'm doing is I have a partner on my children's show who's a documentarian. He's had stuff on the Learning Channel, History Channel, National Geographic, but he's never made more than a couple $100 grand in his life. So he's another person that's never learned how to translate intellectual capital into cash. So he wanted me to help him raise money for his projects, because I'd known him for 3 or 4 years. And I said to him, Milan, I go, why don't we make money instead of raise money? Then we can do what we want. Because I started to meet with his investors, prospective investors, and they basically said, which is what I believed, why would I invest in one of your projects? I said, what you need to do is to create a blanket around all of your projects. So what I'm physically doing now is taking my infomercial, my children's show, my consulting, my speaking, my books, and putting all of that together. I have one of the largest law firms in the world right now, Brian Cave, who a partner basically did for me what Dan did. I told him exactly what happened, and he believed me. And so now I have a partner in one of the biggest law firms. The thing that their specialists are in intellectual capital, and they will simply blanket all of this intellectual capital and use it as security for an investment. And what we're simply going to do then is take that investor, here's the money that they come up with, right? They take that and then they make this, and they're out of the deal. The next investor sees this, and now they do the same thing. After 2 or 3 of those, we create a fund. And that's in a transparent fund, where every single thing is done, every dollar, everything is transparent. It hasn't been done before. And that's what I'm in the middle of doing right now. So if somebody has property, I can consult with them to what I would do if I was them. If they're making an income, what could they do to increase that? Because I made 20 times what they've made. I just didn't know how to keep it. I've never done the business side. I'm not a CEO, COO, CFO. I'm the guy that knocks the trees down for the engineer to come in and put in the road. I don't know how to keep that piece together. So now I have a law firm that keeps those pieces together. And this gentleman I talked to you about, this Bob from Ventura County Real Estate Investment Group, he's a project engineer for aerospace. They don't screw up. They don't make mistakes. Every single thing is listed, right? So what I want to do is I really want to build a Disney-esque business. I want to take my partner's documentarian work, combine it with what I've done, and create this entity. And if you go to the website and you read about it, our children's show is called thenewmafia.com. Thenewmafia.com. And there's a link to it. Now, of course, people, want to say something negative about the new mafia. And what I was taught is if somebody said to you, oh, being a realtor, oh, you're crazy for being a realtor. Would that be a positive or would that be a negative? What's that? They mean it as a negative. But if you look up, and this is interesting, do you know who the highest IQ of anybody ever reported is? What's that?
Something crazy?
Well, you'll see. Marilyn Vos Savant from the Dear Marilyn, Ask Marilyn column in the Parade magazine, 260 IQ. And she said, the masses have